Welcome into another live episode of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. We're going to be talking about Oregon's Pro Day, what the 49ers are doing in free agency, and the 49ers season might hinge on the offense. Stick around right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that doesn't go on dark retreats and endorses the 49ers signing and drafting Kyle Williams. Steph, what's going on with you?
What's going on, man? Great. How are you?
Hey, man. Freaking out about every single non-move that the 49ers make. Sarcastically replying to every special teams player, but let's talk about something that has to do with the draft before we start with any of this. Oregon's Pro Days today. Potential prospects: Derek Harmon, Tez Johnson, Connerly. Talk to me about who's at the Oregon Pro Day.
Oh my God, there's so many great prospects, first of all, as you mentioned, but the 49ers apparently have 8 scouts or people from their scouting department at Oregon's Pro Day. This is by far the most that I've seen them allocate to a single school's Pro Day. And so this is pretty significant. John Lynch is one of the guys in attendance, as well as, according to Draft Diamonds, they also have the VP, Director of Player Personnel, Director of Scouting, Pro Personnel Scout, Assistant Director of Player Personnel. I'm going to wait to see some pictures to confirm some of this, but if this is true, that's pretty insane. And Rob, before we went live, asked is this just a smoke screen? I think it's a little bit more than that. I legitimately think there's some great prospects there that make sense for the 49ers. I mean, you mentioned Derek Harmon. He's one that, very similar to the, mold of other 49ers that have graced this team from Oregon, right? Eric Armstead and Buckner. So they could go that route. Connerly's a good one. Burge, Caldwell, one of my personal favorites. The tight end, Ferguson. Tez Johnson, he knows how to get open. Bossa, there's just so many great players. But that's the thing, right? There's been a lot of pro days with a lot of great players that they have not had this many people in attendance for. So you gotta think that maybe there's definitely someone on their radar that they really like over there.
I love this stuff because you're so good at understanding who's there. You guys are taking pictures of who's there. You understand who's the prospect, or you guys can identify. All I know is John Lynch. Everyone else, if you take a picture of somebody and you're like, "Who's this?" I'll be like, "I have no idea." But you do such great work, and all I'll say is, just prepare for the best special teamers that Oregon has. So don't worry about impact players. They're just going to go ahead and draft themselves another special teamer, right? Am I doing this right?
I mean, based on the 49ers free agency moves, they're all in on special teams.
So we have all this good stuff that's going on with the draft. Obviously, I'm joking, but that is a good place to start with free agency, as the 49ers have made more signings, but they are special teamers. So in the past, we've talked about the 49ers doing this and allocating money to the special teams unit and resources, right? 3rd round kicker, 4th round punter. You think that would cover it up, but they're doing that again. And I think they're doing it under the guise of the new special teams coordinator, who is going to reboot everything. But the 49ers seem to be really focused on the special teams unit, which was a bottom 2 unit. And the 49ers would have won a few more games last season if they were just a net 0 unit. I think the good news is they'll absolutely improve because it's hard to be worse. But they are at least paying attention to it. What do you think, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, for the 49ers not wanting to do a lot of spending, it sure seems like they're at least willing to spend, and not a lot. These are probably the only types of players that they're interested in spending on right now, which are very cheap contracts for special teams. And it almost feels like, Kyle felt away about his dedication to special teams being questioned at the end of the season. And, it makes sense too. You got a new coordinator there to want to get some new bodies in there that, you have a vision for. So, yeah, it seems like free agency has been focused on that entirely. And yeah, maybe they're hoping that their special teams can carry them to victory.
Well, all it has to do is not give games away, right? I'm not expecting them to be a top 10 unit. That would be great. But if they were a net 0 unit, they'd be fine. And we've said that many times. There's some of the new arrivals as well, too. Jordan Mason's gone. Kevin Givens, Patrick Taylor, Mac Jones, McCorkle's here. Finally, Kyle's quarterback. Kyle Juszczyk is back. Richie Grant, Curtis Robinson's back. Luke Gifford, special teamer. Trey Brown, special teamer. Syria Neal, special teamer. John Weeks and Demarcus Robinson feels like the only one, and Luke Farrell are going to be the only ones who really have a chance to start for the offense one way or another, as Luke Farrell is going to be the blocking tight end, and Demarcus Robinson figures to see a bunch of snaps based on the idea that Brandon Ayuk is going to be missing some time, and they want some stability at the wide receiver position, and he's a veteran, right? So we'll see in 3 wide receiver sets, Jennings, Pearsall, and Demarcus Robinson. For the most part, all of these arrivals are special teamers or depth. And I think that's where what the conversation that we're about to have kind of ties into, and what the 49ers would have to do right before the draft as well, too. I don't want to leave that part out. The story of the 49ers 53-man roster is far from done, and the NFL draft is going to be where the 49ers clearly make it. Now, I want to start here. The pressure on the 49ers in this draft is so immense now. If it's literally gone from they're going to address all of these things in the draft to almost all these guys have to step in and contribute day one. And what type of pressure is that? No NFL franchise should have to be under the guise of 11 draft picks hitting, right? Like, let's think about this, right? We all want to upgrade a center on the offense, but for the most part, the offense is set. Offensive line, all your starters, you're good there. Defensively, defensive tackle, edge, linebacker, safety, another corner. These are where you're going to be addressing it. And the problem is that when you don't make these free agency moves, the NFL draft now is so pressure-packed because you can't take guys that are going to sit there and be one-year projects. You got to take guys that are ready to go. We thought last year was good with 4 guys, 5 guys, maybe 6 guys that are going to be contributors. But the 49ers need a similar return with at least 5 or 6 guys. Isn't that too much pressure, Steph?
It's a lot of pressure, and it's kind of a pressure that they've put on themselves, right? Because they haven't made any of these free agency moves. And I don't even think it's for lack of trying. Like, we've heard that they've been on some free agents. We've heard that, they tried to get Greenlaw even after he had agreed to his contract with the Broncos, right? So it's not that they haven't really been aggressive. It's just the fact that, one, players aren't really interested in coming to the 49ers at this present moment, especially defensive players, because they probably can't see the vision to what the 49ers are trying to do right now. Even 49ers own beat writers have a hard time figuring out what the 49ers vision is right now. And that's troubling to me. But that's one thing. Like, yeah, you're not going to be able to lure in free agents if your offer is equal to another team. Say you like the Eagles, you're going to be picking the defending champions on a new deal rather than the 49ers, who have a lot to figure out. So I think that's part of it. And then obviously with them not wanting to spend too much on certain players, I think this is what it is. And obviously with Saleh being here and obviously wanting to move on from certain players, like they had Leonard Floyd under contract still. He could have kept Leonard Floyd and you could have been a little more okay with the edge position going into the draft. But, obviously maybe I'm saying obviously a lot, but Saleh maybe didn't want Leonard Floyd on this team, and that's why they wanted to move on from him maybe. So yeah, it's putting them in a position where they have to hit on all picks. You have to draft at least 3 defensive linemen, and I'm thinking 4, maybe even more, right? So that's where they're at, and that's what they've put themselves in. And so it's going to be challenging. I know this is a really deep defensive line draft. So they got that going for them, but they need to have a lot more going their way in order for this draft to be a hit. You got to make sure these guys are healthy in 2025. You got to make sure, that, yes, after the draft, we might say, hey, this is a great draft, but when they get to the NFL, maybe some of these players have slow starts. There's just a lot that can go wrong, but they need to hit on all these picks in the worst way.
And when I say all 11, obviously that's impossible, right? But I'm trying to exaggerate to underlie the importance of the draft right now. And look, there's still a chance, as free agency is completely slowed down to like basically a crawl right now in the second week, where the 49ers can sign somebody like Zadarius Smith. You know, I hate to throw out names like this, but these are the players that are left. Zadarius Smith and like Von Miller, like, you know, like that doesn't feel good because they feel like Band-Aids, but they could be rotational guys. And I think that's kind of what Steph is talking about, to the point of Leonard Floyd could have been here and that would have been fine. If you would have signed somebody else and just used them as rotational guys, you know, you could have constant pass rush. I think that's the idea. But for whatever reason, like you said, it might be Robert Saleh who said, you know, I'm good on him as well too. And it's not all 11. I'm just being hyperbolic to highlight the importance and how much they back themselves into a corner in this NFL draft, because regardless of the idea of whether you think the 49ers are going to have down the line guys, these guys have got to step in and take meaningful snaps today. Like, that's the thing, is it's not about development anymore. I mean, obviously the plan is to develop on the fly, but these guys have got to play today. Like, and that's the part that is just a little worrisome, because yes, they're rookies. And maybe the good thing about this is Kyle Shanahan can't doghouse any of these rookies because he has to play them, right? Like, you know, like at this point, get ready to learn rookie ball, Kyle Shanahan, because these guys are going to have to play and contribute. You're going to need bodies to just be on the field. So that's the part. It's you know, again, when you look at the holes, they're largely on the defensive side. Again, I want an upgrade at center. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop you know, harping on that. But 2 defensive tackles, an edge, a linebacker, a safety, a cornerback. These are big positions clearly on the defense. And Robert Saleh is going to have a lot of rookies playing a lot of meaningful snaps because of the corner that they backed themselves into, not even offering Azeez Ojulari 1 year for $6 million or Josh Ouse 1 year for $4 million. By the way, I guarantee you they get to Philadelphia and all of a sudden find something and kick up, by the way, on those crazy deals. Now, obviously, like Steph said, if you had a choice to go to the San Francisco 49ers or the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, who seem to have things rolling in the right direction, you're probably going to make that distinction and go ahead and do that. But it just kind of highlights that, you know, you could have had these young pass rushers for almost pennies on the dollar, and then you could have let Chris Kocurek work his magic on them. So I just, it's the draft, and I'm highlighting the importance of it and how these guys are going to have to be day one starters. And that's something the 49ers have just not been comfortable with early on.
Well, I will say, I do think Robert Saleh probably a little more willing to play rookies than Kyle Shanahan. And I think for Kyle, it's more so the playbook thing. It takes, you know, rookies so long to to have it all figured out, and they get into the doghouse. But we'll see if that changes this year. I don't think Kyle will need to play as many rookies as Robert Saleh will have to in 2025. And yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be. But we've seen other teams in similar situations excel in doing something similar. You know, the Rams in 2023, we've now hearing everyone talk about that. The Eagles last year, they played a ton of rookies, right? And even last year, the Rams brought in a lot of new rookies in, and you know, they were very successful in building up their trenches. For the Eagles, it was like their secondary, you know, they've built that up. So it's not that the 49ers can't do it, but, you know, based on some picks that we've seen them do in recent years, I think it's fair to wonder, are they going to be able to, you know, hit on this many picks in this draft? Well, like we say, they're in a position where they have to at this point. And, you know, Jay, I'll just say, like, one thing that's, you know, really frustrating to me about this entire, like, rebuild, I'm gonna just call it a rebuild of the defense, right? It's not an entire team rebuild, but I'll just say it's definitely a rebuild of the defense. I think one thing that's frustrating is that they could have done this gradually, and I think a lot of us have kind of been wanting them to move on from aging players, guys who have underperformed a couple years ago. Like there's some moves they made couple years too late, and I think that's the issue. And now you're in this spot where you have to dump like half of your defense, you know, in order to bring in some new blood. Well, if you just did it gradually over the course of the last couple years, like a lot of us thought that they should have, then they probably wouldn't be in this position where they feel like they have to hit on so many picks in a single draft. And the problem that I had with the past drafts is that because they were so deep and, you know, they're in this win now mode, they were kind of just like I don't want to say purposefully whiffing on picks, but they were taking chances that I don't think they would normally if they didn't feel comfortable with the top of their team, right? And the top of their depth chart. And so in a way, it kind of created some bad habits in drafting where they were just going for guys that were raw, that needed a lot of development. And the 49ers didn't develop any of them. And they're now off the team or will be off the team shortly, right? And so now you can't take those chances. And yeah, you got to hit on all those picks. I just don't feel like they necessarily needed to do it this drastically. But good luck, I guess.
Well, when you miss draft after draft after draft and you trade your valuable high picks for other players, Trey Lance, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Young, right? You don't have first and second and third rounders, right? And then the people that you do select are not good and they don't play here anymore. And it's been 3 drafts in a row of you walked away with Brock Purdy. That's great. That draft, ultimately, besides that, absolute wash. Nobody that's even on the roster right now. Samuel Womack's partying in Indianapolis right now. And Tariq Castro-Fields was drafted and he's not even on the team. Like, the reason that you're backed into this corner is because you went all in trading all these picks for Chase Young and Christian McCaffrey. And I applauded the effort at the time, but when you don't win the ring and then it's time to rebuild the roster, now you find yourself in the spot that you're in right now where you have to hit on the draft again. And then look at this. Drake Jackson, bust. TDP, bust. Danny Gray, Eagle. Spencer Burford on the team. Samuel Womack, Indianapolis Colt. Zakelj on the roster. Kalia Davis, rotational guy. Tariq Castro-Fields signs with Washington, and he's bounced all over the place. And Brock Purdy. That's one of the drafts. That's not even all of them, right? Because that's a Drake Jackson that you got in the second round. But when you miss on that many players, that's when you start to get into this mode. But again, we applauded the effort when they were going all in because they were that close, right? And you think that a Christian McCaffrey is going to get you over the top and that a Chase Young is going to help you with your defensive line and get you over the top. But when you don't get over the top, then you have to come back to this strategy now of the draft. Things are a little bit going to be dire when it comes to that. With the Rams won a bowl and then they went to do it. So, and then here's your draft. Jair Brown, hoping the best. Jake Moody, get him out of here. Cameron Lotz, who doesn't play. Darrell Luter, special teamer. Robert Beal, practice squatter. D. Winters, he might be the starter. Braden Willis doesn't play. Ronnie Bell, not good. Jalen Graham, we'll see. Right? Like, again, like all of these guys some of them are on the roster. But are you setting your watch to any of these guys? And again, this draft starts in the 3rd round. So you traded your firsts, you traded your seconds, and you tried and all that stuff. But when you don't win the bowl, right? It's much harder to deal with this outcome and what you have to do in this draft, because at least the Rams could say, hey, we went all in. Oh, we're in cap hell. They won a championship at least. That's the way that you can at least extend and give yourself some grace.
Yeah. And just looking at those drafts, it's just like, I know they didn't have first and they didn't have seconds. And it's like that to me, like, that's not even an excuse. Like, why are you drafting a kicker in the 3rd round? Like, you basically just threw that pick away. I mean, that you could have used on an impact player. You could have used on a player that could have, supplemented one of these, defensive players that you let go this offseason, right? You could have like the next man up right there. Instead, you took a kicker that may not even be on the team in 2025. Like, and just looking at a lot of those picks, that's just one. But like a lot of those picks to me were just kind of questionable. Drake Jackson was super raw coming out of USC. I think they could have done better with that pick. Like, not to get on a soapbox, but this just like, I just don't like the way that they handled, the last few drafts. It was almost an arrogant drafting in my opinion.
Wasn't almost.
Yeah, because it was like, hey, we're good. I mean, just throw
all we
something
need
on
is
the
a
wall. Let's see if it sticks. Like,
all we need is a kicker, and we'll plan the parade.
We don't have any needs. We don't have any needs. Think about, like, exactly. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating, but you can't, that's why I can't feel bad about the fact that, now in 2025, they have to hit on a lot of these picks. And it's not just that, it's like, even in free agency, there wasn't really an effort to, get some depth in like valuable depth that you can actually use beyond just special teams into some of these positions. And I'm thinking mostly defensive line. I'm very worried about the defensive line and what it's going to look like this season. And again, it's right now it's looking like it's just going to be a lot of rookies playing, and not to say that it can't be good, but yeah, shout out to D. Jarmond, member for 30 months. Wow, that's awesome. He says, smash that like button, spicy squad. Let's go 49ers.
Hell yeah. I love that. So the conversation about this is just to highlight what the 49ers need to add on defense in the draft, right? You basically need 2 defensive tackles. You need an edge guy. You need a linebacker. You need a safety. You need another corner. But what if, and maybe because it's March 18th and I feel like being optimistic, and I'm very much tired of the pessimism about everything and, the constant arguing back and forth and everything. What if I laid this out for you? Given the 49ers' 4th place schedule, given the fact that the 49ers are going to have all of their starters essentially back, aside from Brandon Ayuk, is it time for Kyle Shanahan and the offense to do the heavy lifting for the defense? In 2019, the 49ers defense was excellent, and the 49ers offense was behind it. Still a very good, efficient offense. And every other year that the 49ers have competed, the defense has been on par with the 49ers offense. Aside from the year that they made the Super Bowl, the offense was historically efficient. But Steph, why do I have this strange feeling that the 49ers are still going to win 10, 11 games, and it's going to be on the back of this offense? And the fact that Kyle Shanahan and this offense is still largely intact. Am I crazy? Am I sipping is there something that's in my coffee that I didn't put in here? Because when I was going through the power rankings that everybody's essentially put out today, going into the draft and post free agency, everyone says, well, yes, the 49ers have had an exodus of talent on defense, but Robert Saleh's there, so they should improve a little bit. But the offense is still largely intact, and we think Kyle Shanahan's still a very good offensive coach. What do you think, Steph?
I mean, obviously, I think this is how the 49ers are probably thinking right now, right? I mean, yes, they've made a lot of sweeping changes to the defense, but not a lot to the offense. So I think in their mind, yeah, they do probably feel that they could do this rebuild of the defense and still be competitive. And again, if we're going optimistic, my thought would be, why not, right? I mean, you have an easy schedule, this season. The Seahawks are also, rebuilding some things over there. Arizona's still not that good. And, you could compete with the Rams. But yeah, I think if Kyle Shanahan's going to be a little more focused on the offense than maybe we feel that he has been in like the last 2 years, right? Because he's had a medal, I think, with the defense a little more than he would have liked, just things being as they were. If he's going to be a little more focused, then yeah, I think we can expect and hope for an improvement in this offense. And you have a lot of the returning guys who have been big to your offense. George Kittle, if they could get something done with Brock Purdy, he's going to be the guy and hopefully able to carry this offense. Christian McCaffrey, if he's going to be, 100% healthy, they feel good about that. Yeah, I see why not, right? So I think that's the approach that the 49ers are taking. They could put points on the board, and the defense will figure things out as they go. Obviously, they have a lot of trust in Robert Saleh. There's a reason they put on a full court press for him, and it gave them the ability to be able to do this, right, at this point in time. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely what they're going for. We'll see if it works out. I do still think there's some improvements they can make on the offense, but obviously for the 49ers, like maybe they feel those are secondary, right? Like the one biggest thing they still need to upgrade, and it's pretty big, is center, right? Like you need to have someone at center. There didn't seem to be an effort to compete for the services of Drew Dahlman or any of the other centers that were available in free agency. And you can see why, like those guys got paid, right? The 49ers not trying to get into any bidding wars for a center. And so they seem comfortable going into camp as of right now, right? We don't really know. Things could change. It could bring in someone else. But as of right now, it seems like they're comfortable going Jake Brendel, Hennessy, and, Ben Barch, maybe Nugent competing at
or
center,
maybe or Zakel.
or Zakel. So which, if any of those guys can be better than Brendel, again, it's kind of
Not a
like
high
what
bar.
you're saying about exactly is what you were saying about special teams. Like, he was one of the worst, man. It can't be that hard to be better. So maybe that's what they do. It seems like that's what they'll do. And so they feel fine about their offense, it seems. And yeah, as long as center could be improved, I see no reason why that can't be true.
And the thing is, the 49ers last year were 4th in passing yards per game. And I think 49er fans, because we've been watching this mass exodus of players and watching free agents sign in other places, we're kind of undervaluing the offensive pieces ourselves. You know how many teams would kill to have George Kittle start for a tight end for them? Even Christian McCaffrey at this stage of his career have a quarterback as solid as Brock Purdy. Even have somebody like Jauan Jennings. Like, I talk to a lot of people who are fans of other teams, and they tell me all the time, "My God, that Jauan Jennings guy, and we're like, yeah, we know because we've had him." You know how many teams would kill to have these sort of weapons? So I think the argument is twofold. Is the offense, the sum of its parts, is still very good. It may not be as good as it's been in previous years because Brandon Ayuk's not going to start the season, and we're going to find out a little bit. But the sum of its parts is still a very good offense that actually moved the ball very well. If they improve even a little bit in the red zone, now we're talking. And then if Kyle Shanahan is the offensive coach that we believe he is, then this season's got to be a masterclass of you being able to show that you haven't lost your touch. The McVay tree has gone up because McVay did very well last year. Kevin O'Connell did very well last year. You've got to show that you're staying in touch, right? And you're gonna add new wrinkles, and you're gonna be like this. And I put out like a little mini thread because I think there's a lot of talk about evolution in the 49ers offense, right? And I found the Bears game a concept that was an Andy Reid concept called the Seattle concept. See, that's Kyle right there doing the little things and finding evolution and using other things, right? And he's not being so rigid. So I think from the outside looking in, we have this perception that the offense will never evolve. But I think that we should give a little bit more credit to the offense last year and how it evolved. It's just in the red zone it needs to pick up. And again, when you put it together with this offense and you're talking about these weapons, many teams will kill for that. So I do think that the 49ers offense job is to put up points clearly. I mean, that's not really a breaking news. But I think the defense would just have to do enough. And if I was guessing how this season's going to go, you guys better get ready to learn 16 and 17 play, 84-yard drives that ended touchdowns to keep the defense off the field and kill the clock. So I do think that maybe I'm not being so optimistic. I'm just kind of looking at this as like, yeah, Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk at some point, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerrero. Yeah, that's a pretty good offensive core, and a lot of other teams would really be happy with that, let alone pair it with Kyle Shanahan, Steph.
That's why I do feel like people freaking out. Obviously, there's people are overblowing things and taking it a little out of proportion. Big surprise, right? But I think we're all worried about the defense, and we're all fair to wonder what's going on there. But full picture, looking at this offense, I mean, it is not, or this team in general is not that bad when you look at the offense and you think about all those pieces that are returning. When you think about Kyle being able to focus and evolve, we're much of this offseason, after the Luke Farrell signing was like, oh, are they returning to more like 12 personnel sort of offense and, bully ball? We're going to get more bully ball in this offense. And yeah, it could return to that. And for how much Luke Farrell is getting paid as a backup tight end, which I know people aren't very happy about, you would hope though that it means they're looking for a bigger role for him. And maybe that's what Kyle feels was missing last season, right? Just like a really good blocker who can make the rest of the offense go and free up George Kittle to do what he does best and all those things. So yeah, hopefully that is what we see, and we see the new wrinkles. And yeah, I think Kyle has it in him. I just don't think last year so much was a year for him to focus on evolving. I think there were points he tried to because he had to, because there was a lot of injuries. But now there's no Debo in this offense, right? So there's going to be some new things sprinkled in there, I think, with a return of things that we've seen before that maybe he had departed from.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you're worried about the money with Luke Farrell, I guess I get it, right? Because let's do the knowledge. They drafted Charlie Warner to block. Charlie Warner didn't cost much. So when Charlie Warner walks off to go to Atlanta, they signed Brock Wright to an offer sheet that the Detroit Lions matched, and that was to block. And now Luke Farrell signed to block. I don't think the 49ers have ever tried to get away from having a blocking tight end. I think it was just the circumstance of the Detroit Lions understanding that they wanted to have Brock Wright back because they like running the football as well too. But they've never really strayed from the philosophy. They didn't really get the guy that they wanted last year. Obviously, Detroit locked in and they signed him to an offer sheet. They matched it. And then they landed on Eric Saubert. But the idea of a second tight end is always going to be a part of this offense. And they've been telling you with their actions. It's easier when you draft Charlie Warner because he's cheap. Now you're paying for a blocking tight end. So I think it's not the idea of the evolution of the offense. It's more just the money allocated, I think, is what everybody's issue is. Unfavorable perspective, 9-man offense is going to struggle with defense and no defense to bail them out. George Kittle and JJ, the only players I trust. Cool, man. So I think for me, like, when it comes to like the Luke Farrell thing, it's like the 49ers have been telling you what they want to do with their blocking tight end. Like they've never wanted to get away from that at all.
They just haven't had a lot of success in replacing him. And so, yeah, I think they hope that Luke Farrell is going to be that guy. And that's why they paid him what he did, because they lost out on, the Brock Wright sweepstakes, if you even want to call it that, last season. Right. So now they want to make sure they do have someone who's strong, and they're not going to sit on their hands and try to find a TE2. They've tried through the draft as well, like Latu and Braden Willis haven't exactly been inspiring. And Latu's not even on the team anymore. So, yeah, that avenue didn't really go well for them either. So that's what the Luke Farrell signing is. But, yeah, I do expect that he'll have that same Charlie Warner role. That was obviously, something necessary for this offense to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think the 49ers are going to draft the receiver too in this draft. I mean, you have 11 picks, right?
And a running back, right? Right?
And a running back. And a running back for sure. Now that Jordan Mason's gone, what you mean? We're right back in it.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Etienne, come on down, pal.
He said,
You're the next 49er.
No, let's do a Kyle impersonation really quick. His conversation to Jed. Jed, well, I just traded away Jordan Mason. So, I'm gonna need another running back this season, and hopefully maybe in the third round.
Don't you feel like the one move that they allowed Kyle to make was Mac Jones?
Yeah, they took that from him. You're talking about free agent move.
Free agency. Yeah.
Okay,
free agency.
I thought you were talking about
please don't get me started about that at all. Like if you believe that Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones and they made him take Trey Lance, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Like, please. But yeah, it does feel like, again, that's what they've been doing. That's what they've always wanted to do, and they want to get back to that as well too. Again, if everything works out in terms of, I think they are going to take a wide receiver. They are going to take a running back as well too. I think they do believe in Isaac Guerendo, who flashed very much again. And then to the conversation about the running back is, there's going to be a ton of UDFAs that the 49ers are going to wind up signing. And then all of a sudden in training camp, everyone's going to say, oh, man, this guy's a baller, i.e. Jeff Wilson, i.e. Jordan Mason. So you can't highlight the third round misses and then not say anything about the undrafted free agents that you were able to get the production from. No, you can't.
Yes,
No, you
because why
can't.
are you using third round picks on a running back when you could get
So
them
look,
from
what I'm
undrafted?
saying, what I'm saying is this offense is so running back friendly that the idea that they won't be able to find production because they missed on TDP and Trey Sermon and Joe Williams is cherry picking the bad without seeing the UDFAs that have been in here. Listen to me. Matt Breida, Jeff Wilson, Jordan Mason, who everybody's crying about. Oh, we can't replace Jordan Mason. Sure, we can. And Tevin Coleman, for God's sakes, was productive in this offense. What are we talking about?
That's what I'm saying. Just stop using draft picks on running backs.
But Isaac Guerendo's good. Like I don't get it. Like
the one that they've hit on.
But my problem is this is using those third round running back examples and then leaving out the fact that you've gotten production for. Wait a minute. In that third round draft, Trey Sermon got drafted. Who was the rushing record for running the rookie rushing record leader? Elijah Mitchell. He was in the 6th round. So I don't care if you wasted in the third. Like, if you wasted in the third round,
I do, because that could have been used on another pick. So I see what you're saying. Like, I see what you're saying. 49ers can get production out of basically any running back that they get late, and that's great. Obviously, we all know that by now. But that means that they don't need to use these early picks on a running back. But Kyle still will, because, I don't know, for some reason, like, he gets the pick, the third round player every year, I guess. I don't freaking know. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think they need to allocate it that high. I do expect, though, they're going to come away after the draft. They're going to come away with 2 running backs, one that they draft in the 3rd round or maybe the 4th, and then one that they pick up as an undrafted free agent. And based on, past history with this team, the undrafted free agent will probably outplay the one that they used to pick on.
Yeah, again, look, this system, and if you want to go back, let's go back to Mike Shanahan. They make running backs.
Yeah.
You guys remember Orlandis Gary? Like, that wasn't a household name, but when he gets into Denver's offense under Mike Shanahan, he's a leading rusher. Same thing with the 49ers. Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, Jordan Mason. These are guys that have been productive when they've been called on. Now, if I had my way, and we all know we don't live in a perfect world, we won't have to worry about anybody behind Christian McCaffrey. But it would be really nice if Christian McCaffrey didn't have to have all that tread on his tire. So I guess what I'm saying is it's the outcry of the Jordan Mason thing, but Jordan Mason was absolutely an undrafted free agent, and you moved up almost an entire round in the draft and flipped him and got a 6th rounder, and you can do it again. There's other Jordan Masons out there. So I guess that's my rant on the Jordan Mason thing, because I just saw too much outcry about a running back that is easily replaceable, because you can find a guy who can run the football as well. And they've done it over and over and over. And that's what the system is conducive to. So, all right, if they draft somebody in the 3rd round and he thinks, okay, but if they get somebody in the 6th round, then you'll sit there and you say,
all
it's
is
a wasted
well.
pick. Yeah, they're going to find someone. I'm not worried about that. That's why this offense, for me, is in a good spot. I'd love to see Christian McCaffrey get less run, and you use other people. I do believe in Isaac Guerendo. I think he allows you the flexibility to call the same plays that you would with Christian McCaffrey. He can catch the football, former wide receiver. That's very good, right? Like, his skill set, and he's a home run hitter. Let's not forget, he would have had 2 more touchdowns if he didn't just slide at the one. I don't understand what he was doing. Like, if he wanted to get those touchdowns, and then when he was pressed into duty, he was very good, right? Like, when he had to start, I think people forget that, because Jordan Mason was playing, and Jordan Mason, while he was good between the 20s. He couldn't finish in the red zone, and then he got hurt. So again, I just think they'll find a way to get that done. I am less and less worried about the running back position, but in a perfect world, Christian McCaffrey should be healthy all the time.
And the world is not perfect.
Of course not.
But and Isaac Rendo has dealt with several injuries himself, so
Hmm.
he might be the new Elijah Mitchell. I'm hoping not, but yeah, this is exactly why the 49ers will need to draft another running back and get a couple other bodies in there. Uh, Again, to just help the tread on Christian McCaffrey. You don't
Yeah.
want to use him any more than you need to. But that's the thing. That's part of the evolution that we want to see. Like, and Kyle's done it before where he uses committees. Just because you have Christian McCaffrey and he's like one of the best running backs in the game does not mean he needs to be in there every single snap. Like you could switch it up now. Someone like Arendo and maybe whoever they draft is gonna make them feel hopefully more comfortable with alleviating some of McCaffrey's role a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And that's all I'm saying. We're gonna find out how this plays out, but I have less reservations about the offense than obviously the defense, and that's not even really going out on a limb. I still believe that the 49ers offense is still up at the top of the league, and you can see fourth and passing yards, they get back to running the football. If they convert in the red zone, we're talking about a completely different team, right? And for the most part, there was plenty of games where special teams gave a game away, or Ronnie Bell can't catch the football, or like there's context that needs to be added to all of this, right? And I think that's the part where when I left this season and watching it again, the offense was the least of my worries. The only thing that really worried me about the offense was the red zone offense because they weren't converting in touchdowns. But the defense down the stretch gave games away. The special teams gave games away. That's the stuff that you really need to harp in and fix. And I'm not trying to scare anybody because, obviously the defense is going to take a step back. But yes, I honestly, I don't have as many reservations about the offense because they've shown that they can move the football. And it's not going to be hard to be better than they were in the red zone last season. So, yeah, maybe there is a little whiskey in my coffee and I'm feeling a little optimistic, but I'm just kind of tired of everybody, not seeing at least a little bit of the bright side here, especially when you pair it with the fourth place schedule that they'll be facing.
I wouldn't be surprised if a good portion of Kyle Shanahan's offseason has been allocated to just drawing up new red zone plays. And just making sure that's the one thing that they improve on, if nothing else. If just that, like, they will be a hell of a lot better than they were last year. Like you're saying, like, and Kyle knows that. So I'm sure that's one of the things that he's working on.
Yeah. And look, again, anything can happen, right? It is what it is. Obviously, right now, it's March 18th. There's no draft. I mean, the draft is 36 days away, whatever it is. We'll figure this out. Right now, the skeleton of the 53-man roster is in place. But, who knows? Are the 49ers going to use all 11 picks? Do they, who they, like, again, I think largely they're just going to address the defense because they just have more holes on the defensive side of the ball than they do offense. But I wouldn't be shocked again if the 49ers go back to the well with the running back and wide receiver as well, too, just to put more depth there. And again, the reason the 49ers are in this spot is because they said, oh, we don't need to address anything. We've got all our guys. It's better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them. And that's why you're in the spot right now that you're in, because now you have to hit on all these picks. So again, just because you feel comfortable with 5 and 6 wide receivers that you have right now doesn't mean that you shouldn't at least look at wide receivers that are going to be there, because you don't know what's going to happen with injuries or down the line and contract negotiations and who's going to be here and who's not. That's all.
Tez Johnson, Kyle Williams,
Jalen Noel, come on down. No, stop playing.
Ready to learn the doghouse, buddy.
Get ready to learn to Bartolo way, pal. But yeah, and then the other thing is too, the running back group this year, it's one of the deepest. It's been in a long time. Like, there's going to be plenty of productive running backs in this league and in this draft. And it doesn't have to be high in the draft. And there's going to be guys, UDFAs, that the 49ers are going to wind up bringing in. And who wouldn't be shocked if Izzy, I can't say his last name, so I'm just going to say Izzy, is the next running back. Is the next running back guy that all of a sudden starts to pop, in training camp, where they're just like, get him the ball, right? Like, that's how we started with Jordan Mason. So again, I just have this different view right now of everything, and it just feels like the 49ers offense is the thing that I'm not as worried about, far more worried about the special teams and defense.
Yeah, I'm with you. We got to latch on to any positivity that we can, and right now, maybe that is the offense. So, I mean, we don't got much on the defense, but even then, if we are gonna go all in this episode on being positive. Like the 49ers still have Nick Bosa. They still have Fred Warner. They still have Deommodore Lenoir. Like there's still those like pieces that they need and is going to make that transition to, this next era of this 49ers defense. It's going to make that transition a lot easier when you have those guys, those cornerstone guys on your defense.
100%. And that's the thing is, like I was saying with the offense, you know how many teams would kill to have their core beat Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, right? Like
Yeah.
Trent Williams, even for one more year. Like we have lost sight of the forest by staring at the trees of just the losses. And I understand these are impactful players, but again, we knew that almost all of these players were going to walk. And if you didn't think that they were going to walk, the 49ers have addressed, except for Dre Greenlaw, have addressed every single one of these losses in the draft the year before. Talanoa Hufanga lost his job to Malik Mustafa. And that Bernardo Green's here because Charvarius Ward was going to walk. So it shouldn't shock you. But the sheer names and the talent level is the part of that they're going to have to replace. And you just have to hope that they have the plan in place, in the draft. Like for me, I wasn't shocked with any of those things. But offensively, just upgrade the center, please. That's all I'm asking. If we're going to run it back with Pooney and Barch and Trent and McKivitz, fine, but please just fix the center and things will go a lot better, in my opinion, for this offense. But I'm pretty good with the offense. Look, Steph, if we got on here and we were doom and gloom, people would yell at us. If we're on here, someone's going to yell at me and say that I'm being too positive. There's no right or wrong way to do this, one way or another, but I just really feel a lot better about this offense moving forward based on the coach, based on the sum of its parts, and based on the fact that I think that Brock Purdy's a pretty good quarterback as well, too, man.
And if the 49ers feel that way, then they should pay him, right? So hopefully that's something that they get done soon. What am I starting? They need to pay him.
You know what you're starting.
They need to pay him. Like literally need to pay him.
No, what you're starting.
No, I didn't even mention McCorkle in all this and what I think about that. But they need to pay Brock Purdy. If they like him, get it done so we can move on with our offseason and at least have that taken care of. And I think that will go a long way to making people feel better about this offseason and the offense going into 2025.
Yeah, I understand. And look, we got a little bit of time. Right now is going to be the dead time in between the draft. And again, we're just projecting what if there was a game Sunday, and thank God there's not. So, we have time, to figure this out right now or whatever. So, yeah, I don't think you and I have talked about Mac Jones, have we?
No, not this week.
Okay. Well, no, wait. We didn't talk about him last week, did we? Because it didn't happen.
I don't think so.
All right,
no,
so
we didn't talk about him last week.
Let's close the show here. Mac Jones is a fine backup quarterback. Mac Jones is going to, if he is thrown into the fire, will operate this offense pretty well. Mac Jones is thinking that he wants the Sam Darnold stimulus package so he can throw himself into the starting quarterback conversation whenever he hits the free market again. Mac Jones is not here to be used as leverage in Brock Purdy's negotiation. But Mac Jones is here if things go completely left with Brock Purdy and he decides to hold out and he doesn't want to play for whatever reason, which I don't think will happen.
But that's leverage.
It sort of is, but it's not.
At the very least, it's a hedge. And that's
very much a hedge.
That's all I'm saying about Mac Jones. Like I think it's a hedge, which in turn does give you some leverage because you're protected should the least likely scenario of Brock Purdy holding out happens. You do have someone who can start games. I mean, and he may not be as good as Brock Purdy, but I think the 49ers would be okay with that if it comes to that. They don't want it to come to that, which is why it's like, hey, we got Mac Jones. You can hold out if you want to, but we'll be fine kind of thing. So in a way, I think it's to discourage Brock from holding out. And if he does decide to do that, they're protected. So I think it's a smart move regardless. I don't think he's a threat to Brock Purdy at all. Again, like I said, it's only if this deal does not get done before the start of the season. That's it.
I just think, again, they're going through range of possibilities. First of all, you need a backup quarterback. one way or another, because Dobbs is gone, Brandon Allen's gone. So who's your backup? And Curtis Rourke, pack your bags. You're going to Santa Clara as well, too, with one of the last picks in the draft as well. Indiana University quarterback legend, come on down. But, yeah, you need a backup, one. And two, you're just playing the range of possibilities. I don't think Brock Purdy's going to hold out. I don't think Brock Purdy's going to kick and scream.
No,
but
I don't think so either.
But you do got to kind of give yourself that little safety net. And I think the 49ers would absolutely put Mac Jones in a spot where people would want to, bring him in, all those things, right? So, hey.
Here's the other plus from the 49ers standpoint, and what makes Mac Jones different than other reclamation quarterbacks that they've brought in, right? Sam Darnold was just a 1-year deal. Mac Jones signed for 2. If he plays any amount, this year, has to play a few snaps and teams see that and are like, oh, like he actually wasn't so bad. We're actually interested in Mac Jones, and you could flip him for a pick. So it's like, that's the other plus to having Jones and it being a 2-year deal rather than a 1-year deal and just letting them walk for free. Yeah. Or they could just keep him for the 2-year deal, Yeah.
They have options. Yeah, I mean, if you go ahead and you find yourself, like, if you like Curtis Rourke at the end of the draft and you think that he's good enough in camp, then you move him. Like, you move Mac Jones, that's fine. But Kyle loves his guys, which is why he went to Sam Darnold, because he would never stop praising him even when he wasn't even anywhere near the 49ers building. Same thing with Mac. So I just think that right now, that's a good backup, probably a top 2-3 backup in the league. And if we know anything about the 49ers, their backups play a lot, unfortunately, and not because of benching, because of injury. I mean, it's not the worst thing.
We're not saying. We're just saying.
Yeah, we're just saying. But yeah, that's your Mac Jones talk. We're done with that. Let's get this one wrapped up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get all your audio podcasts. Make sure you follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Both of us have YouTube channels as well, too. If you want to go over there and hit a subscribe, join the channel members, do all those things. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Run those likes up. And as always, let's go Niners. Peace.
Peace.